All right, we have made it through 6 parts of our 10-part sales series of Mastering the Sales Process. And today I expect a slight uptick in viewers because today we're talking about everybody's favorite topic, which is overcoming objections. Now, if you've been paying attention to the first 6 episodes, a lot of this is going to help you prevent getting objections in the first place. But even if you do everything right, you still might come across people that have been conditioned for 50 years to think about it and not make a decision. So it's our job to help people think differently, get out of their own way, and feel comfortable and confident in making a decision to change their situation. Welcome back to Final Expense Telesales. My name is Dana Neeson. And this is, again, our 10-part series of Mastering the Sales Process. My job is to help you have stronger, more sophisticated sales conversations. And if you'd like more information on joining my team, Empower Life Group, all of my contact information is in the description below of every single video. And let's get started. Now, 3 months ago, I actually did a 4-part series on objection handling, and you can find the link to that series here in the description below as well. I took a much deeper dive than what I'm going to cover today, so maybe after you watch this video, if you want to get a little bit more in depth into objection handling and how I go through it and different objections that we cover, go take a look at that series. Today, we're going to cover the basics, and I'm going to give you a framework to follow so that you can feel more equipped on how to help somebody overcome their concerns rather than ignoring it and pushing right ahead for the approval and letting them know they can cancel it if they change their mind, because that is a weak way of selling. So we're going to start by talking about why do we get objections in the first place. We typically have 4 reasons why we get objections. Number 1 is fear of making the wrong decision. People are afraid of making the wrong choice, therefore they get paralyzed and make no choice at all. Number 2, they're uncertain about the value, right? Maybe we have stayed in logic-based thinking too long and there wasn't enough value created. Number 3, they want to shift the responsibility to somebody else. They want someone else to make the decision, which could be yes or it could be no. Either way, they don't have to be the one responsible for making that decision. So they go make that decision someone else's responsibility by talking to someone. And number 4, they actually really don't want it or they don't need it, and they are just trying to get you off the phone without saying no and hurting your feelings. Now, how do you identify which one of these buckets your clients are falling into? Well, it's going to be a little bit difficult to identify on the actual call as you're trying to tackle it unless you have years of experience and you've had hundreds of phone calls. The best thing to do is go back and listen to the call and try to identify where that fork in the road happened, where maybe you lost trust, maybe you didn't create enough value, maybe you didn't educate them well enough, maybe you weren't strong enough in helping guide them into making a good decision. You gave them too many options and then they got paralyzed and they didn't know what to do, right? They got confused. Regardless, here is a framework that will help you at least have something to be able to help you and help your clients when it comes to objection handling at the end. Number 1, you want to acknowledge, empathize, and ask. This is a 3-step frame for the very first thing you must do when anybody gives you an objection. It doesn't matter if it's I want to think about it, I want to talk to someone, I want to check my budget. It does not matter. This is what it should sound like. I understand that you'd want to talk to someone. I understand that you'd want to think about it. I understand that you want to check your budget. This is a big decision. Then we ask, can I just ask? Is it okay if we just put that aside for a moment? Can I just ask, is this program and the policy that we've talked about, is this something you think you even want to have? Okay, that's the formula for acknowledge, empathize, and ask. All 3 things must be done. A very common mistake that a lot of sales agents make is they don't empathize, they don't acknowledge, they just ask. And when someone gives you an objection and you just push it aside and you just focus on your agenda and trying to check a box so that you can move on to your next question, it will not land the same. Okay, so after you ask, they're going to say one of the three things: yes, no, or they'll give you some ambiguous answer, like a yes, but, or an I guess, or something, some version of that. Now, the key here is to interject and be very quick when you get the yes, because you might get a yes, but you might get a ambiguous yes. Either way, you have to be quick and interject, and you have to respond with, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like it's the plan for you? Okay, that's the next step, is you have to ask them why. Now, if they say they don't want it or it's not the plan for them, then what are you fighting for? Obviously, you just spent 30 minutes on the phone with someone who doesn't have a strong enough need. Why are we giving them a quote in the first place? Something to think about and identify, are you spending time on the phone with clients that aren't buyers? When we say, why do you feel it's the plan for you? You have to do that very quickly. And we have to put them back on the spot. And what I'm trying to do is to get them out of their logic-based thinking, where they're living in fear, uncertainty, doubt, or trying to move that responsibility shift to someone else, or they just don't want to tell you no, and we still couldn't quite figure that out yet. Okay, but why do you feel it's the plan for you? Okay, now I need to get them back into emotion-based thinking so I can help them remember why we got on the phone in the first place. They're going to give you an answer. It doesn't matter what the answer is. You might prompt them with additional things that they shared with you in the form of a question. Okay, that's a really important part. If they had said earlier that, her daughter's husband passed away and it was a nightmare for the family and they scrambled and had to do a GoFundMe, and the answer that the client gives you is because you don't want, she doesn't want her family to come out of pocket. A good question for that would be, right, because what was that like for your daughter when she lost her husband? And just get the client to tell you again what the impact of not doing something could cause, not you telling them. It doesn't hit the same. So now they're going to recap all of the reasons why they said they want it. You're going to promote some active listening skills. Okay, so if I'm understanding correct, you do want it because insert back everything they said, plus maybe a little bit more. Then the next step is, and the only thing kind of holding you back from getting there is because insert objection. You want to think about it. You want to talk to your XYZ person. You want to check your budget. Doesn't matter what the objection is, you need to insert that budget there. Now, here's the first kind of fork in the road where you're going to ask permission to make a recommendation, okay? And always ask permission, because as you learned earlier in part of this series, asking permission is putting the control in your prospects' pockets. They have a say in what's going to happen next. Do I have permission to maybe make a recommendation? Sure. Okay, well, it seems to me that everything is aligning here based on what you're hoping to put in place. And there's some hesitation because of maybe the fear of the unknown or some uncertainty. But at the core, it sounds like this is really in your heart to break the cycle and make sure your family's protected. So my recommendation would be to maybe look at something that feels more comfortable and affordable right now, because remember, you don't have to make your first payment today. And if you take some time over the next few days or the next few weeks and you want to make changes to your policy, you want to add coverage or you want to decrease your coverage, we can always do that, right? But at least we can take that first step in taking action to protect your family. Does that sound like a reasonable solution? And that's the first time you're going to re-ask for the sale again. Now, your fork in the road can go two different ways. This isn't going to be a slam dunk, sure, thanks for the wonderful recommendation, loop number one. Now, sometimes it will. It could be that easy, and they just needed that little nudge or that little push to get them over the line to feel good and reinforce the decision. You're going to make a recommendation, by the way. You're going to say, I recommend we start with this policy at this price point because it'll take care of this problem and it'll provide this solution. And then we can move right into the application. If you're wishy-washy on it and you're waiting for them to sell you on the policy, it's going to unravel and it will completely fall apart. Now, depending on how strong their objection is, you might have to take it a couple steps further. And if you refer back to the 4-part series I have on objection handling, I take a deep, deep dive into I want to talk to someone, I want to think about it, budget concern, and we have a new one today about I want to pray about it. Another one we had in the past series was banking or fear-based objections, like I don't want to give my social or banking information. It was I want to check my budget, I want to talk to someone, I want to think about it. Today, we're going to introduce a new end of call objection that we have for I want to pray about it. So I'm going to share my screen with you on that one, and we're going to go through that objection series. If someone still says at the end, it's not a reasonable solution, they still want to do the objection that they gave you in the first place. You're looking at the actual script that I have for my team for I want to pray about it objection. Again, it gives you a recap of why we get objections in the first place. And we're going to step number 1, frame their current way of thinking, right? We're going to acknowledge, empathize, and ask. That's the formula here for step 1. I completely respect that. Faith is important, and I'd never stand in the way of your prayer that you need. At the same time, though, can I just set that aside for a moment and maybe share a story that might help you bring some clarity? Right? Yes. Okay, well, here we go with the story, right? We're going to do an analogy that's going to help somebody think about their situation differently. There's a story about a man who was caught in a terrible flood. Right? As the water rose higher and higher, he climbed onto the roof of his house and prayed for God to save him. After some time, a group of people came by in a small boat. They shouted, "Climb in, we'll take you to safety." But the man shook his head and said, "No, thank you. God will save me." A little while later, a second boat came by. Again, the rescuers urged him to get in before it's too late. But once more, the man refused. He said, "No, thank you," and insisted, "God will save me." Finally, as the floodwaters raged around him, a third boat came. The people begged and pleaded with him to get in the boat to safety. The man still refused and declared, "God will save me." Eventually, the waters rose above the roof, and the man drowned. When he reached heaven, he asked God, "Lord, why didn't you save me? I prayed and I believed." God looked at him with confusion, and he replied, "I sent you not one boat, but 3 boats, all of them to save you. Why didn't you get in?" You see, sometimes the very thing that we need to pray about, protection, peace of mind, putting a policy in place for our family, is literally sitting right in front of us. You have been asking God to make sure your family is taken care of, and this opportunity might just be that boat. This is the answer to the prayer that you've been needing to do. You don't have to wait and wonder if God will send another sign. The fact that we're on the phone together today talking about protecting your family is that sign. It is the boat. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, when that day comes, your family will never regret that you stepped into that boat to help them today. And I've given 4 reflective close options. Number 4, so let me ask you, do you feel like this conversation could be the answer you've been praying for? Number 3, when you picture your family in that moment of need, what choice do you believe they'd want you to make right now? Choice number 2, given everything we've talked about today, do you think waiting would bring you more peace? Or would you have more peace putting this in place today? And number 1, if this really is the boat that God has sent you, what do you feel is the right next step to take? Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that if you follow this script and use this process for I want to pray about it, it's magically going to work 100% of the time, because it won't. It also takes a lot of practice in your delivery. your pace, your tonality, how you lower your voice, how you practice the inflection of certain words, how you create pausing to create space for them to absorb what you just said, plus maybe create some space for them to participate in what you're saying. You're trying to help them imagine that the thing they are trying to do is actually running away from the thing that they're supposed to be doing, okay? And now, are you going to get I want to pray about it often? Maybe not. But in the 1 out of 10 times that you get this objection, wouldn't it be nice to be prepared? So again, go back to my 4-part series on mastering objection handling. I want to think about it. I want to talk to someone. We have the banking and social objection. And we have, I want to check my budget, right? Those are the 4 that we have. I have laid out all of those in that series for you to get stronger in your objection handling at the end. Notice that when I said, let's start with something smaller, and if you want to make any changes, you can contact me at that point. Never do I say you could cancel, right? I'm never putting that verbiage in their minds. It's all about helping them take the right next step. If you've gotten any value from this video, please give it a like, post a comment, tell me what you've learned, and let me know that you're excited for part 8, which is writing the application. There is actually best practices to that, and I can't wait to share that with you, and I'll see you on the next video.